Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you to all of you. And it does feel like a bit of a family reunion here. Um, we talk about these changing times, and we are living in in-between times. There is the archetype of the fall of Rome, and then there's the archetype of a world that is struggling to be born. And both are true. Both are happening simultaneously. And with everything we think and everything we do, we are contributing our energy to one or the other, either that which is disintegrating or that which is being born. But I think particularly now at this juncture of Passover and Easter, there is very rich material that is offered us through the spiritual traditions, empowering us and enabling us to better understand what is going on and how we might play the most positive role in choosing a sustainable and joyous future for the human race. In a way, what's happening now is what's always happening, because the story of Passover and the story of Easter are both the stories of every life, of every system, and in a way of every moment. You begin with Passover, the fact that the Israelites were enslaved by the Pharaoh, and Moses appeared. God lifted Moses up, and Moses delivered his people. He led them through the desert, a 40-year journey, but they finally were delivered to the promised land. Easter, of course, the Last Supper, was a Passover Seder. And Easter takes the story to the personal realm. Each of us is crucified, and through the power of God, we are resurrected. So you move from the Old Testament story of an entire people who are led by God through the journey to the promised land. And with Easter, the story of every human heart led from the crucifixions of lovelessness that we all endure and are delivered through grace and through God's love, just as God had lifted up Moses to a state of resurrection. Now, I understand that we're all excited about the world that is struggling to be born. I understand that we who are part of this global peace tribe, those of us, many of whom have known each other for so many years, watching Linda, watching Gary, watching all of you, it's so exciting. We're old friends. But I think in a way, the so-called spiritual transformational community that we all represent and have represented has failed to dwell deeply enough in the deep reservoirs of spiritual and religious information. And I say that because too often we skip the enslavement in Egypt and go right into the promised land. We skip the crucifixion and go right into resurrection. And when you kind of gloss over the crucifixion and go right into resurrection, you're actually not in transcendence, you're in denial. I mean, we should point out the irony of the fact that on this night, we are talking about the gathering of the global peace tribe, and there is no global peace movement in this world. We have the war in Ukraine. We have wars in Yemen. We have wars all over. We have war against the earth. The earth itself could, the IPCC report says that by 2070, if we go the direction we're moving in, there could be 700 million climate refugees. We are dealing with a war in Ukraine in which all of us are watching on television, watching the terror and the horrible things that are happening. And we know that we have this crazy man who has nuclear bombs, so the entire world is limited in what they can do to stop him. I don't think it takes away from the richness of our spiritual understanding. I don't think it takes away from our commitment to living in love for us to acknowledge those things. I think it strengthens, I think it gives gravitas, it gives power to our movement and to our lives for us to be the ones who do acknowledge, there's the cross before there's the resurrection. There was the slavery before there was the journey to the promised land. But as a student of the Course in Miracles, the way it's put in the Course is it says God has a plan. And, the Course is one statement of universal spiritual truth. We all know that, they all say these things in their own way. The way the Course in Miracles talks about it is in the midst of all this darkness, the midst of all the pain and the suffering of a wounded world, God has a plan. And the plan is the plan of the teachers of God. And the Course in Miracles says, who are the teachers of God? It says they come from all religions and no religion. They are those who have heard the call, and that the call goes out every single moment of every day. And that is the call that all of us hear. Be better. Come on. Don't play this situation the way you played it last time it came around. Don't, we're all wounded, but don't act from your wound. You have a choice here. Be brave, be strong, be intelligent, be noble. But the thing is, guys, it's not always easy, as Gary was saying. And not only is it not always easy in our personal lives, we have to acknowledge the resistance of our political systems, the resistance of our economic systems, the resistance of our entire global order to the creation of a sustainable world. The crucifixion is very real. The crucifixion of the species at this point. If we don't stop fossil fuel extraction, we are on a march to suicide. If we don't draw down the manufacture of nuclear bombs, we are on a suicide march. Right now, America has 7,000 of them. Russia has 6,000 of them. They've already talking in the budget that both major political parties support. Over the next 10 years, another $1 trillion to be spent on them. The human race is insane. That's what Gandhi said, that the problem with the world is that the humanity is not in its right mind. And we know that Krishnamurti said it's no sign of mental health to be well adjusted to an insane society. So when we talk about a global peace tribe, I believe, it's just like Friday was Good Friday. When I went to work at a church in Detroit several years ago, I'm Jewish, so I come to the whole Christ-centered consciousness as someone who didn't come at it from any of the religious doctrine or dogma as a student of the Course. So the whole idea of Good Friday, I didn't really even understand. But I was working at this church, and they traditionally have this Good Friday service. And I didn't even really totally understand Good Friday. It's the day of the crucifixion, blah, blah, blah. But, it's sort of my job to note it and hold a service. And as it turned out, that was really one of the most powerful days of the year for me. And when I was there at that church, that there was a day where we acknowledged, and this is hard. On this day, we acknowledge this is not easy. On this day, we acknowledge that the power of fear is rampant, just as is the power of love. And we're living right now. And it's important. What I noticed about that, doing the Good Friday services, the Easter service had even more meaning. You don't leave out the slavery part and go right to, it's the promised land. You don't leave out the crucifixion. You acknowledge it. You don't look away from it. In the Course in Miracles, it talks about positive denial. If you don't acknowledge what's really wrong in the world, you're not living in transcendence. You're living in denial. The issue is positive denial. The positive denial is you look at the systems of the world, which are mitigated against the survival of the human race. We're not just talking about personal transformation here. We can't. Otherwise, we'll all be like these personally transformed people when the nuclear bomb drops. We have to think in terms of we have to think in terms of resurrection, in terms of global sustainable systems, because that's what this is all about. Remember, a new earth, not just a new you, not just a new me, a new earth, that we come together to be the new earth, the teachers of God all coming together. And as we do that, it's just like in the body. The human body has an immune system. Without a healthy immune system, the body can't survive. With a healthy immune system, the body can take a lot of injury, a lot of assault, a lot of sickness, disease. And if it's a healthy immune system, the immune cells are activated and they go to the wound and they know how to heal it. The psyche has an immune system. We can take a lot of trauma. We can take a lot of heartache. We can take a lot of upset. If we have a healthy mental structure, it's a psychic immune system. And civilization needs an immune system. And you and I have to see ourselves as the immune cells. It's a collective resurrection now. It's not just my resurrection that let's say I am no longer wounded in this area or that area or addicted or whatever. We all know about our personal crucifixions. But the whole point of going through the personal crucifixion is so that we can then collaborate with others in co-creating the collective resurrection. The collective resurrection at this point. You know, our traditional Christian friends like to talk about the apocalypse, right? And we all, read the Bible selectively, right? They do and we do. And they talk about the apocalypse like there's going to be this big war. And then at the end of the big war, there's going to be this 1,000 years of peace. Well, those of us who are metaphysical, we sort of don't like to talk about that chapter. But there's a metaphysical way of looking at that. And that's your divorce was your crucifixion. That was your apocalypse. Your having to get sober was your apocalypse. Your going bankrupt was your apocalypse. Your cancer diagnosis was your apocalypse. In other words, each of us have our personal crucifixions. Each of us have our personal apocalypse. And on the other side of that, we have gained wisdom. Just like when Gary said, I used to be one way, now I'm another way. There are enough of us now that can say, all right, I'm not a perfect enlightened master, but I'm sure as heck better than I was. So now, if enough of us take the wisdom that you gained from your divorce, you gained from your cancer, you gained from your bankruptcy, you gained from your getting sober, and we put all our wisdom together, we won't have to manifest a collective apocalypse. We don't have to, but we can. And if we continue down this path of collective unconsciousness, then it's reasonable to assume that we just might. Because there's no one out there who's going to come save us. There's someone in here who saves us if we allow that which is in here to come forth. And then we're living in positive denial. We look at what's happening in the world. That's a problem. And we say, I see you, but you have no power over me. I deny your power over me. I understand that there are forces on this planet. That's the most vicious ego right now, is a collective force. What is this unconsciousness that is allowing us to continue to do what we're doing to the earth when every scientist will tell you this is global catastrophe coming down the road if we don't change? There are so many things like that. And now, just like the cells in the body, the cells in the body, they collaborate. They don't compete. They collaborate. We have global systems that are based on competition. We must shift to collaboration. So as you gain wisdom, that's what we're all doing here tonight. Deborah writes me, Deborah writes Michael, Deborah writes Gary. We all gather. And this is great because the Course in Miracles says an idea grows stronger when it is shared. But what I so wish for my tribe, which is all of us, this is my tribe. When I'm with you tonight, this is my tribe. I've been, like Deborah said, we've all been at this together for years. Could we please not only talk about ourselves? Could we please? We are smart people. We are intelligent people. We should be weighing in on the great political and social and economic systems of the day. A lot of people, like in politics, they say, oh, what do you spiritual types have to do with anything? Excuse me, abolition arose from the early evangelicals in New Hampshire. And the women's suffragette movement arose from the Quakers, because these women were learning every day the Spirit of God is the same in every man, woman, and child. And well, then where can we vote? And the civil rights movement was led by a Baptist preacher, Dr. King. All the great movements in American history have been led by us. It is an aberration that we sit this stuff out and only talk about personal transformation. We needed to talk about personal transformation because we needed to personally transform. And we're never going to stop needing to be on that path. But I think it's important that on this night, we not only point out we suffer from, I don't know about suffer, that we bewail the irony of the fact that there is no global peace movement, that the governments of the world, the economics of the world, the politics of the world are a global war movement. Gary was talking about Vietnam, et cetera. We're of a generation when there was a global peace movement. Large part of that had to do here in the United States with the fact there was a draft. I'm not suggesting we put a draft back, but it was all so immediate. It was your brother, it was your husband, it was your lover, it was your friend, it was your father, it was your son. Now we find it so convenient to just push it off to the side and not have to think about it. I think a lot of this is changing. People are seeing what's happening in Ukraine. We're not stupid. So tomorrow is Easter. Tomorrow is Easter. Because everything I just said about the crucifixion and about the problem is not the end of the story. The Course in Miracles says, look at the crucifixion, but do not dwell on it. If you dwell on it, then you do spiral down and you do become at its effect. You look at it, but do not dwell on it. But like I said, I found when I worked at that church in Detroit, noting it on Good Friday, it was power in that. And that in the midst of the slavery in Egypt, God lifted up Moses. That means he lifts us up. That's an aspect of ourselves. That in the midst of our crucifixion, we are lifted. That's an aspect of ourselves, but not just for ourselves. It's a tribe, but not just our tribe. It's convenient. We have a cozy, convenient thing. We've all known each other for years and we all love each other and we've all been at conferences and stuff. And I understand that. When Deborah talked about my running for president, I wasn't used to being hated. I was used to this lovey-dovey field. We're all nice to each other. The worst that could happen is, and then I'm like, whoa. But we must go out there and forge it because I do believe more people on this planet love than hate, but those who hate with conviction. The ego is suspicious at worst and vicious at best, and that is true on a global level as well as an individual level. So what I would like to complete with from my sharing tonight is let us commit ourselves, not just assume we're part of a global peace tribe, but know that it is our job to create a global peace tribe. The Course in Miracles says miracles arise from conviction. More people on this planet love than hate, but those who hate with conviction. I can't imagine a kind of sort of sometimes when it's convenient, committed terrorist. Too many of us are kind of sort of sometimes when it's convenient, committed to love. We have to be committed to love, not only in our own little way, but in terms of understanding what that means and its global implications, what it means in terms of people who are not in our neighborhood, what it means in people who are not part of our world. To answer the call, to be teachers of God, to know, okay, none of us are perfect, but we've all known each other for enough years. We're not perfect, but we're so much better than we used to be. Let's commit to each other tonight that we're going to join together and each of us is going to be guided through our own internal systems. God's not going to tell me what you're supposed to do. God's not going to tell you what I'm supposed to do, but let's deepen our commitment to do what the voice for God inside us tells us to do and to stand with one another. That's what we're doing here. We stand with one another. We've known each other for years, but it's fun. We have to stand with each other even when it's not fun. We have to stand with each other even when it's not convenient. He says in the Course in Miracles, I don't need martyrs, I need teachers. I don't think we're being asked to be martyrs, but I do with all my heart believe that we're being asked right now on the planet, step it up. The era of data collection is over. So much of what we're talking about now, we all know. We've all read the same books. We've all listened to the same tapes. Now we have to have courage to own what we know. You didn't come to this program to learn something you don't already know. We come to these programs at this point to deepen our access to the things which by now we all already know. I spoke at Columbia University the other night. I love speaking at colleges and universities because these kids, they're not even 20th century people. They shouldn't live at the effect of bad ideas left over from the 20th century. They're young enough to still be dreaming. We need to harness the potential of those young enough to still be dreaming and old enough to now be wise. So I leave you with the same thing I said to these kids as I left. I said, remember, pray, meditate in the morning, kick ass in the afternoon. And so, if I may, let's pray together here on this eve of Easter. And a great mystery occurs. Easter is not just about one man's life 2,000 years ago. And it's not just one day of the year. It's about all of our lives, every moment when we are lifted from that cross. Because no matter what it was, the Course in Miracles says you were not created to be at the effect of lovelessness in yourself or in anyone else. The Christ in you, the love in you cannot be crucified. Your personality can, but the spirit in you cannot. Rise up by remembering who you are. Rise up by remembering why you're here. Rise up by just not sweating the small stuff, as Richard used to tell us. Rise up by remembering that you are literally God's ambassador on this earth. Rise up by looking at every other person and knowing that they have within them the same infinite potential that we all have. Rise up by our refusal to continue to coddle our neuroses and pathologies. You know, Carl Jung said all neurosis is a substitute for legitimate suffering. Let's stop it with the small grade suffering. There's big suffering going on this planet. Too many of us have not been choosing to act from the place of our own grandeur. Sometimes from our grandiosity, but not from our grandeur. And to me, Easter, what a point of understanding. What a point of like, wow, if I forgive, I can rise above this. If I love, I can rise above this. If I just get over myself, I can rise above this. If I make it not about me, I can rise above this. If I'm just willing to be available to God, I can rise above this, and I'll be shown what to do, and I'll be shown who to do it with. If I'm just willing to be used by God, I too can resurrect and be part of this global resurrection, this global gathering of the Peace Tribe, knowing that I was here in programs like this, just so all of us could be reminded, because it's like a time release capsule. The real work is not just what's happening here tonight and in this program, but what happens when we leave here, having taken in all this amazing information. Better prepared, more willing to receive. And you know as well as I do, there will be moments and all of us will think back and go, I think that happened because I was part of that global peace tribe thing. I think that did something to me. So thank you for all of you who put it together. Thank you for giving me the honor of allowing me to speak into this listening that is my own tribe and has been my own tribe for the last 40 years. Let us share a vision, not only for ourselves, but for all the world. And let us rise. Dear God, as we join with billions of people around the world, dear God, on this holy, holy holiday of Easter, we consider with them the possibility that in the space of love, the chain of darkness, the chain of evil, the chain of suffering indeed is broken. That those who have risen above it rise in us as well. As we own, as we receive, as we prepare, as we make ready our hearts to remember who we are, to remember why we're here, and to pray, dear God, that you use us. Glory, hallelujah. We praise that through the grace of God, we do rise. The whole world will rise as we make ourselves available on this holy night, that we ourselves might be used by God to help make it happen. Bless this event, bless each other. Let us take this moment to send our love to one another, to bless and give thanks to our hosts, to pray that every miracle needed by each of us shall now pour forth upon us, that a path of light shall be paved before us, that there shall be angels to our left and angels to our right, angels in front of us and angels behind us, angels above us and angels below us. And we shall not fear, For in any moment of confusion or doubt, we need but put out our hand as though a child to an elder brother, knowing that he will take our hand and guide our way. This is his day, and this is no idle fantasy. That which is holy and true, by whatever name, lives in us. And so it is. Together, we all say, Amen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Much love.
Marianne, by the way, has these wonderful daily lessons from A Course in Miracles. I've really enjoyed it. It's a great way to start the day. I think we all love to meditate, pray, and listen to A Course in Miracles with Marianne in the morning, and then kick ass in the afternoon and evening. And then maybe at the end of the night, listen to some more daily lessons with Marianne. It's a great course, and you can find this and all things Marianne Williamson at marianne.com. Marianne.com. And Marianne, we are your family, and we do love you very, very much.
Right back at you. Thank you so much.